Welcome to Talks with Tracy, with certified hypnotherapist, life coach, and licensed mental health professional, Tracy Claremont. Tracy will share her healing journey and explore the many meaningful alternative healing methods in our world today that will support you in doing your own deepest emotional healing. So please welcome the host of Talks with Tracy, Tracy Claremont. Let the suffering end and the healing begin.
Hello and welcome to Talks with Tracy. I'm your host, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate every single one of you who takes the time to listen to my show. And of course, thank you to Bold Brave Television Network for having me. I always appreciate the opportunity. So I've really been looking forward to today's show. I'm shifting gears for a while. I'm revisiting a very important topic in the world of healing. I've previously dedicated episodes to this topic as well, and that is narcissistic abuse. There's so many people out there in the world who are caught up in toxic relationships, and it's where true growth and healing can really happen. And you know that that kind of healing is available to everyone, even when you feel like you're stuck in something. So I would like to talk more about that today. Now I have my own fair share of experience in relationship with narcissistic people. That's for sure. I've talked about that as well. But I am a survivor and I have healed from the hurt and damage created by toxic relationships. And, you know, these kind of experiences have run the gamut for me, all the way from toxic friendships to toxic work relationships, toxic romantic relationships. Now, thankfully, I did not have to suffer from toxic relationship in my childhood. I was not subjected to narcissistic parenting, but I knew a lot of you out there have been raised by narcissistic parents or toxic people, toxic caretakers. So I'd really like to talk about that. Now, when I talk about recovery from narcissistic abuse, I think of one of my all-time very favorite survivors, and that's Ash Benevides. So now Ash has joined me in several episodes for a discussion discussing narcissistic abuse. And you know, she's one of the most open, honest, straightforward people that I've ever met, and I always appreciate her candid discussion and candid sharing of her personal experiences and her growth. Now, she is somebody who has experienced narcissistic parenting in her childhood as well. So who better to have this discussion with than Ash Benevides? And she is here today. I'm so happy and excited to have her here today to once again share her experiences and her perspective on this topic and to provide us with an update on her life and her growth. Now, I am proclaiming her an expert on narcissistic abuse. She has really done the work. She has done that deep dive into her own emotional experience. She has focused on her own healing. She's gone down the rabbit hole for sure, educating herself on narcissistic abuse, the dynamics, all of those things, and really evaluating her own experience within that, even holding herself accountable for her part in these relationship experiences. So I am so very thankful to have her here today. Please join me in welcoming back to the show the beautiful and amazing Ash Benevides.
Hi.
Hi, welcome back. I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you as well.
Yeah, so again, thanks for joining me again. You are in recovery from a lifetime of narcissistic abuse. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And now you have, I mentioned that I've experienced it in several different ways with friendships, workplace, romantic relationships. You have experienced it in even more relationship ways. So now what I know of you is it started in your childhood with some narcissistic parenting that caused you some emotional pain, and then it went on from there to show itself in lots of different ways in friendships, romantic relationships, employers, even spiritual teachers that
Yeah.
you've been within. Can you talk about some of those, how like some of the similarities that those all of those relationships had that you know tell you or you have come to realize have those traits of narcissism?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I'll start off with my summer. I wanted to get back into packing after my accident. So I actually went to a couple locations, and I'll go with the first one. I worked for a guy, and I went on a pack trip with a gal, and it was a very bizarre trip. But when she shared with me she's from Europe, the last few years working for this man, because I'd never met him. I got there and I went out on this pack trip with this gal and thought it was strange that we were moving a tent in a camp that he's had for years back to, he put it in the wrong spot. So I was kind of confused. I was like, why would you put it in the wrong spot knowing where you need to have it and sending two girls to move, like some really heavy equipment? And in her story, it was interesting because, they took her in from Europe. She had her, her work permit, lots of promises. Oh, one of the stories was this horse. She trained the horse, she got it ready, and they're like, oh, we'll give you some of the money. And, this is your project. Well, when she went back home for a funeral, they sold the horse. Didn't tell
Mm.
her, didn't give her
So now,
anything.
Ash, you're talking right now about a coworker that was working with you on
Yeah,
this pack trip
coworker.
that was under the like some kind of packing company,
Yeah,
adventure trail
exactly.
riding company. Okay, so they were you guys both worked for a particular employer in a like a small organization.
Yeah, yeah. But I
Okay, and she
wasn't
was a
there long
coworker.
enough. I listened to her
Oh,
story. And as she was sharing in backcountry what she'd experienced the last few years, I kind of looked at her, I was like, I think this guy's a narcissist. And the things I looked at was the love bombing. One of the things that narcissists do very consistently that I've noticed, whether it's a job or a lover, is they'll say one thing, do another. They will
Mm,
message you something, you'll have proof of it, and they'll deny it. No, I didn't say
mm,
that. I didn't agree to that. And that was one of the biggest things that in her story was coming up, and she was so confused. I mean, this person was very confused and not sure what to do. And when I had heard about her before I came on board to work with her, he devalued her. He said
mm,
she had no skills and that I could teach her how to pack in backcountry. Well, actually, it was quite the opposite. Dutch people are very hardy, and she was able to do a lot. She didn't even need my help. I mean, I was like, you're completely fine. Like what? And so where it changed for me is when we got back out of backcountry, and I had communicated with him like I need to go back to my property in Montana. There wasn't a trip coming up for weeks, and assess my horses, move horses around. And now when he agreed to this, wanting to hire me, he had gave me this package. This is what I'm going to pay you. This is how many days a week. Well, the next response when I had mentioned I got to go for a couple weeks was, I need you 7 days a week. And it completely changed. I can't even remember the message. I still have it. And instead of me getting mad, because this is something I know that happens with people that are in narcissistic relationships or jobs, is they get defensive or they get
mm,
confused and they retaliate. I've learned you can't do that with a narcissist. You just gotta
mm.
smile and nod. So in this situation, I actually said, oh, looking at the messages of the days I was going to work, and I thought, oh, well, I misunderstood your message. Yeah, you did. He was very abrupt and rude. And in that time, I made the decision. Am I going to stay on this and
Mm,
explore this journey, or am I going to leave? So I left. I said, thank you for the opportunity. I don't think I'm the right person for your outfit. I'm leaving. Um,
mm,
an example of spiritual, what I experience with spiritual people. And, it's still very hard to like look back on my life at 40 and be like, dude, most of your friends, if not all of them, were narcissistic. I was constantly washing their feet. And I say that in the sense of I was constantly pleasing them, constantly hyper vigilant, which was just on guard with the people in my life, whether they were spiritual or they were, you know, into cowboying. My entire world was with highly toxic people. And I was this sort of, I always praised them. I felt like I was constantly having to work. And I had an example of an ex-friend. I had to make her an ex-friend. Hadn't seen her in years. And I knew her from, you know, Naropa, Boulder, you know, doing stuff in Taos, New Mexico. And she wrote me out of nowhere on Facebook, when were you going to tell me you were going to Peru? Okay. There's no, hey, how are you? I haven't talked to you in a long time. It was out the gate, very abrupt. This girl, like, you know, a lot of them do a lot of, like I say, ayahuasca ceremonies, spiritual gatherings. And one of the things I notice about a spiritual narcissist is the minute you question what they believe in, the monster comes out. A whole nother person comes out. And with this girl, she literally wrote and said that, she said, I guess your sisters aren't as important anymore. And I was like, wow, I guess I didn't realize I needed to tell you I was going to Peru. I thought you lived there. And I knew right away. Because what I've done is I've learned the art of the narcissist, how they gaslight, how they do. There's certain traits they do. The love bomb, the devalue, the discard. They bait you. They blame you so you can be on guard. Like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Like, I'm so sorry. Which they all do it, you know. And so in this dialogue with this girl, I was really polite and said, you know, I was in a car accident last year. I don't know if you noticed that. And I guess I forget a lot of things and don't feel like I can reach out necessarily to everybody. And the messages from her got worse and worse. Just crazy, really. I mean, just like, you know, you're out there chasing men and forget about me. And I was like, whoa, this is getting like, I was like, I haven't seen you in years. I didn't know I was supposed to tell you that I'm going to Peru. Right. But it was instant gaslight, instant flipping the script on me. And so my polite response was like, okay, hey, you know, I think this is done and good luck. And I just blocked. You know, and they're all, the variations of them are so radical, but the commonality that they share is so fluid. In that case, what about me? Why didn't you tell me? I need validation. I'm feeling insecure. I'm going to message you after I haven't talked to you in years and say something to you. And it's the same with the job. There was another guy, it was the same thing. Prime example, it was a pack outfit. I've had some interesting journeys, and you can't avoid these people. They're everywhere. Whether they're diagnosed or just toxic traits, they are everywhere. And how we deal with them is crucial. You can't get mad. You can't get defensive, and you can't, you know, like keep agging them on because that's what they want. And this great example, we were out in the wilderness with clients in this other trip, and we had this view of Yellowstone, and the guy, which, yeah, he was probably one of the worst narcissists I've met. He said, "Isn't this a beautiful view?" And he's blocking the view, right? So he's got a string of mules, and he's in the frame, which the vibe was, take a picture of me with the mountains in the background because I'm your packer. And my response, very comical, was, well, you're kind of blocking the view. I'm sure they would like to take photos without you in it. It never really, you know, he just stared at me. I feel like when you stump a narcissist, they just stare at you. But yeah, they have a common thread of patterns. And usually it starts with the like promising you the world. Jobs do this. Oh, you're amazing. Oh, I love your skills. They'll do all kinds of stuff. And then if they don't deliver it, they absolutely do not deliver it. They don't give you what they promised. They change it. Oh, no, I never said that. I don't know what you're talking about. They always need to be in the center of attention. It's something that blows my mind. The first guy, he did a group thread with his employees. You know what we talked about? Him. His hunts. Look at me. look at me, guys, look what I'm doing. And I think people, they don't understand that these are narcissistic traits, so they don't know how to respond, right? The best
Mm-hmm.
thing you can do is silence. I mean, that's kind of what I've learned is go quiet. Don't give them what they want, which is a
Mm-hmm.
response. And any response to a narcissist is like it's fuel for the fire, really.
Right,
So,
right. And I talk to people all the time about not engaging. So I love
right.
what you're saying. And when you're given the example of the one employer that you had where there was the beautiful scene and he was right in the middle of it, kind of waiting for people to take pictures of him when you told him to move. I love that you're not engaging, and that really, his blank stare at you was probably related to him um, really not knowing how to respond, because he's not used to those kind of responses, right? They're
No.
not used to somebody having really great boundaries and setting limits. And when you say stay quiet, nod your head, those kind of responses, those really are responses, and they're
They absolutely
actually
are.
responses where you are setting a silent limit and putting
Right.
up a silent boundary for yourself that no, I don't do this. I don't engage with narcissistic people. And that is all a product of your healing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely
Right.
hand in hand.
So I just have to point out, I love the fact, Ash, that with all of this healing that you've done, that's not to say that you won't in your lifetime, I won't in my lifetime, run into narcissistic people, come into contact with them, bump into toxic individuals, maybe have to, come into a workplace environment, things like that, with people with these traits. That it's not that we will never experience this again, but we will be prepared and we'll be ready and
Absolutely.
we'll know how to handle it, all to protect ourselves and to no longer engage in these kind of relationships. So the behavior that you're describing that you had with these recent experiences is very much the opposite of what you used to do in prior to your own awakening and your own healing, and your own developing such a beautiful sense of self-worth. And that's commendable, and it's available to anybody. Anybody can do that healing, and that's kind of what we want to always promote in our talks together. That's part of the reason you're here, definitely the reason I'm here, to let people know that that kind of healing and learning is available to them. And I just love that you went off into the wilderness, into the mountains, deep, deep into the mountains, to get away from people. I know you've told me many times that you just kind of prefer sometimes to be away from people. And they're deep in the mountains. We're
Yeah.
narcissistic
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. It
So
was
we're gonna. That's amazing. We're gonna cut for a commercial. We're gonna take a break. When we come back, I want to share one of the quotes from you and just kind of expand upon that. So we're gonna do that when we come back from a commercial break. So please join us for that. You're watching Talks with Tracy on Bold Brave Television Network. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, Radio show host and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy, coming to you live on Bold Brave Television Network. I have the honor and privilege of visiting with Ash Benevides today. Now, before the break, Ash was sharing how, kind of in an effort to escape annoying people in the world, she is a nature girl. She goes way deep into the backcountry, into nature, just so that she can rejuvenate, fill herself up, and have breaks. And ironically enough, she even ran into narcissistic people with guiding pack trips. And I wanted to share. So you know me well, Ash, and
Yes.
one of the things about me is I'm kind of nerdy in that I love to write down little quotes from people. I love people's words and thoughts, and some of the things that people say, they're just so genuine, and I just really like them. So I have a quote from you that I would love for you to expand upon. Now, I will give a little warning to everybody out there. We're going to use some foul language, just keeping it real. There's going to be a couple F-bombs dropped and things like that. So Martha, my sister, she runs her daycare. She listens to this while she's at her daycare. So put those AirPods in, Martha, because I don't want to be responsible for all those little kids running around, saying that word. But anyway, so Ash, I wrote a quote from you. One day you had told me, and I quote, "My whole life has been built on 3 words. What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
I love that quote. And, you were just speaking to some of the confusion that you feel when you're in these relationships. And for years and years and years, you were stuck in the confusion and the chaos. And then we get stuck in patterns and
Yes.
behaviors of trying to fix things that we don't even understand. We don't even understand or why they're happening or what we're being accused of, blamed for, but we're trying to fix it. Can you talk a little bit about what you meant by that quote?
Yeah. So after going down the rabbit hole, and basically I tell people, if you learn as much as I did, you kind of listen to podcasts, you learn about enmeshment, you learn about the different types of narcissists, you see the common threads, and then you start to look at your life. And in my case, I started to realize it was like having a deck of cards and going through my history and being like, dude, like, not all your boyfriends were narcissists. They were toxic. Some of them were really toxic, but the same patterns of people over and over again left me in the state of confusion in their presence, right? When you don't know what gaslighting is, or you don't know, for example, let's go in the very common example they all do. I didn't say that. I never messaged
Mm.
that. What are you talking about? I never said that. That's an instant confusion, right? You get confused. Or in my case, I was like, what the fuck? Like, why is this person not like, and then I would argue with them, whether it was a guy or a girl. I'm like, wait, you totally just said at the show or whatever it was, and now you're saying something else. Or when they would make you feel really uncomfortable, right? They would sort of talk poorly about you or judge you, and then 2 days later they're on the phone love bombing you again or trying to send you a gift,
Mm.
and you're like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on here? And so for me, I realized that most of my encounters, which was day to day, 365 days out of the year, my entire life, I would run to these people. It was like, oh, you're a toxic person, you're a narcissist. Oh, like, let's hang out, right? Because I didn't value myself. I was looking to replace the love I never got from my family and other people, which is love bombing,
Mm.
right? If someone love bombs you, it feels good. You're like, oh wow, this person really likes me. And it's
Right,
only
it's
when you
validation.
realize, oh yeah, it's like they're validating you. They're offering, like, consolances or whatever. And then once that mask comes off and like they start showing you other stuff, you're like, I'm kind of confused. What the fuck's going on here? So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
say, I realized my whole life was summed up to 3 words, because for so long, even my posts or my sharing, I thought me being what the fuck was cool. I was like, why is my life always WTF? Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm kind of weird. No, I literally hung out day to day with these types of people. I was a servant in their world, and they knew it. They knew it because I was
Mm-hmm.
so constantly, one of the things I learned about coming from an abusive father, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
avoiding conflicts. We don't want conflicts. So what do we do to avoid conflicts? Like, we try to fix everything. Constant
Mm-hmm.
repair. So when a narcissistic
Mm-hmm.
person is abusing you, it's shocking when you're like, oh, I'll fix it. I'll make it better. Right? Because we don't want people to experience what we experienced as children. So therefore we carry the
Mm-hmm.
patterns into adulthood. But that's what that quote meant,
Mm-hmm.
was like, and like I had mentioned to you, my life in the last year is extremely quiet. It's weird. I'm not in a state of crisis, and it's very new. And so having to like explore a new
Mm-hmm.
way of living when you've spent, I don't know, 30 odd years in these types of relationships, and they all ended the same way. It was a pattern. It was a really ridiculous pattern. And so I'd be like trying to fix myself and do something different to appease these people. That's what they want. They want validation. They want you to worship them. Everything is about them. And so
Mm-hmm.
it takes a lot to swallow that pill and be like, you might want to stop hanging out with these kinds of people and make better life
Right.
choices.
And when the narcissistic person needs to be up here where you're worshiping them, then all of uh, all of the problems that come up in a relationship, or in the context of that relationship, they're all your fault.
Yeah,
They're everything. You are to blame for everything, even to the point where the words they say, somehow they become your fault. And this
right.
is the confusion. I love what you're saying about how, you know, life after healing from these relationships is quite calm and peaceful and quiet. And there is research that shows that our brain chemicals, our brain chemistry, can become addicted to that confusion and chaos. So it's
Yeah.
almost as though you have to detox, right?
Yeah.
You have to
You know,
you have to get past that and get comfortable with new, healthier brain chemistry, even. And you said like 30 plus years in these types of relationships. So I want to share with you something that I heard on a Dr. Ramani podcast. Dr. Ramani, she's amazing when it comes to narcissistic abuse. But in this one podcast that I watched, she was interviewing a man named Patrick Tehan, and he is an expert on childhood trauma. And in this podcast, Dr. Ramani asked Mr. Tehan what the definitive symptom of childhood trauma was. So, in other words, what is the number one sign and symptom that is seen in people who have suffered childhood trauma? And he said the number one symptom is trying to get difficult people to be good to you in your adult life. And, I would add to that difficult people who are never going to be good to you,
right.
constantly trying to get people who will never be good to you to be good to you. And I mean, that really resonates with me because I can tell you I spent years and years and years. Even though I didn't have the kind of childhood trauma with narcissistic parent, I did have childhood trauma, and fell absolutely into this number one sign and symptom of spending so many years trying to please other people, trying to get people who were not good to other people to be good to me, and then
Right.
constantly failing and then being blamed for it, you know? So that also resonates with you, I assume, that
Oh
statement
yeah.
about that being number one sign.
It was spot on. It's spot on. And until you realize, especially when you've had childhood trauma and go back and heal those
Mm.
moments in your past, which I think you have to do that in order to change your patterns,
Mhm.
right? Then you feel
Mhm.
comfortable, right? It kind of happens out of nowhere. But I think, yeah, and taking that self accountability that you exposed yourself to these types of behaviors, that's a big pill to swallow for anyone
Mm.
to acknowledge what they allowed themselves to be subjected to. And I still process
Mm.
it. I still have moments where I'm like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. I'm in the embarrassment mode. I'm very like, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you really?
Mm.
Like, why didn't you take care of yourself? I put everyone else before me. And until I'm 40, until a severe accident mirrored with trauma changed my life. And but
Mhm.
yeah, it's absolutely true because you're looking for it's the opposite of the narcissist, right? And I read in a great
Mm.
article about the narcissist and the empath come from the same type of family, the same type
Mm.
of trauma. One goes one direction, the other goes another direction, right? They
Mm.
take that trauma and either make that poison into medicine, or they take that poison and grow the poison bigger, and that's something that I
Mhm.
found very interesting because they need validation from their insecurities, and empaths or just people that aren't narcissists just want to feel loved. It's kind of
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting, the commonalities. And I will say it's easy for us to sit back and say, oh my gosh, how did I let this happen to me? How did I allow this? Because again, I did a similar thing. And when you have spent years and years and years of being blamed and devalued, it's kind of easy to turn that around on yourself and
Yeah.
kind of blame and devalue yourself. And we really need to stay away from that and reframe things into, uh, you know, a view of, this was learning, this was growth that I meant to go through, and I can't go back and change things, but I can grow moving forward.
Comment.
And then, like you said, doing that deep dive inward into your emotional experience and really looking at um, how do I want to be now? What do I want my life to be now, and how do I make those changes? So it's already time to take another commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to share with you a second part of that podcast that Dr. Ramani did, and just kind of ask you your perspective on that. So we're going to break for another commercial. This is Talks with Tracy on Bold Brave Television Network. We'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy, coming to you live on Bold Brave Television Network. So before the break, Ash, I was talking about a podcast, a Dr. Ramani podcast, where she was interviewing an expert on childhood trauma, Patrick Tehan. And so the first part, he was talking about how, the number one sign of childhood trauma and abuse is this kind of ongoing pattern of trying to get people who won't ever be good to you to be good to you. And the second part that I thought was very insightful, and I really liked about this talk, that the things that Mr. Tian was saying was that he said that when we're in this process of trying to get people to be good to us, we really, really lose sight of our own goodness, and we completely lose our own sense of self and our own sense of power. And when we come to a point where the clouds clear a bit and we start to say, what is happening here? I don't want this to be the case. And we kind of have our own awakening, so to speak. He says that turning point is when we reach the fuck that point, right, in this relationship. So when I was listening to this podcast, I was totally thinking of you because I was like, wow, Ash went full circle. She went from a lifetime of what the fuck is happening all the way to this place of fuck that, I'm out, right? Yeah. So tell us, like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that when the knowledge is given, right, in the sense of me learning, and I want to thank one of my best friends, Moana, for that, because she coined the term narcissist to me less than 4 years ago. And basically, I tell people I opened Pandora's box and went down the rabbit hole of learning these types. I had no idea. I mean, my whole life, I had no idea. And then I evaluated that everybody in my life had these I thought someone was filming my life and wrote a book. And I'm like, So I think you get to a point when that knowledge, whatever that knowledge is, and I tell people, do your research. When that knowledge is finally something you understand, you have an opportunity to choose to continue these types of dynamics or choose a better life. For me, it was a car wreck, right? It was that moment, like, I shouldn't be here. I am here. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. How am I going to spend the rest of my life, right? Is it going to be entertaining these people or these relationships, or am I going to build back, let's use the term build back better, but build myself back better, right? And that's something that came with, you have a choice to make. You have a choice to keep nurturing these. I mean, I had to get rid of friends that I had for over 15 years. They didn't like it. Oh, they did not go quietly into the night, but I had to make what was best for my own personal sanity. Because what happens, and I say this to a lot of people, which you probably know as we've talked, a lot of people's health and their mind declines by staying in abusive relationships, right? And something I've observed even now, when I look around me, I see that most people I'm encountering or watching are in unhealthy relationships. Usually this stems from not healthy communication, right? One person not willing to get help, someone not willing to admit that they're wrong, right? These are top-notch issues that people have. And I think one of the things I've practiced over time, that when you get from the what the fuck to no fucks, I'm done, is
To no fucks.
self accountability, right? I have a choice. I can choose this or I can choose not to do this. And then the other thing is like, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? Like, do you want, I mean, as you get older, your health changes, right? So do I want to live a healthy life or do I want to live in a life not healthy? I mean, there's a book I've never read called The Body Holds Score. I don't even need to read the book. The title says it all. Your body holds everything, right? And until we address it, people don't want to address it. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get to the bottom of why I chose these dynamic situations, and I did. And once I did that, I was like, oh, yeah, no, this is not what I want to sign up for in life, and went the other direction, you know? And one of the things I share with people is I turn tragedy into comedy. I mean, have I pissed some people off with uncontrollable laughter? Yes, because in unhealthy situations or when I'm encountering a toxic or narcissistic person, I feel like I could diagnose people. I see them. They're not all narcissists, but I laugh. I laugh uncontrollably because it's funny to me. Because at the same token, what they're doing, I've trained my mind, is absolutely ridiculous. Right. And when you do that, you take power back, right? When you take that power back, and laughter, they say laughter is the best medicine. It really is. And when you find a place that these things are actually comical, you're actually healing parts of your internal self. So I think that, my experience has been very much that. And again, it goes to choice. You have a choice. I know for some people it's hard. If you're married, your career, you know, again, car wreck. So I feel like, well, if you should have died then and you didn't die, what does a career matter? Are you going to work for people like this, or are you going to go live your life? And I think that's ultimately, that's freedom. And if we are all
Right.
chasing freedom, make those
Yeah.
choices.
And, you did reference the fact that these can be very hard choices. It's not an easy choice to make when you choose yourself, because along with choosing yourself means huge changes. You mentioned yourself that there were a lot of people that you had to weed out of your life. A lot of times it's the majority of people that we have to weed out of our life when we are caught up in these kind of dynamics, because what we find as we set limits, as we have boundaries, as we start to use our voice and stand up for ourselves, we can often be surprised by the people who push back and make us
Yeah.
feel selfish and guilty. I mean, a lot of times you're expecting that from like your primary partner. If you're in a narcissistic relationship, they're not going to like this. But it's also interesting to see all the other people in your life who then kind of stand up against you and try to push you back down, and you start to realize, wow, I was a servant to many, many people, and I didn't even realize that. So all of these people are going to have
Yeah.
to go, and that that hurts. Those kind of uh, realizations, they're really painful and really hurtful. And again, you're like, wow, how did I not even see this? You know?
Well, you don't
Uh,
have the tool. If you don't know what
mm,
it is, that's the WTF, right? If you don't have terminology like gaslighting and, flipping the script, like behavioral patterns that they all shared in common, how can you escape it?
right.
You have no knowledge of it.
Right. Yeah. So, just to interrupt you for a minute, Caleb, our engineer, he's asking, can you turn down your speakers just a little bit
Yeah.
more on there? Is it picking up a little feedback? So again, yeah, you did the deep dive inward. You went down that rabbit hole, and you came around to some very harsh realities, and you bravely faced them, and really started looking at how you could have a different life. And some of the ways I know that you have, some of the different kind of behaviors that you have now made just kind of automatic, is really having those solid boundaries knowing what you will accept and what you will not accept. And no longer, like when you feel a person who is a person who is kind of pulling for you to cater to them, to serve them, things like that, you don't engage. You turn the other way. Is that right?
And yeah, it is. And boundaries is self-respect. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people haven't learned self-respect. They don't love themselves enough to respect
Mm-hmm.
themselves, therefore have no
Mm-hmm.
boundaries. They allow the external forces to fuel their fire. Whereas for me, do I have enough self-respect that my boundaries are there? Looking at my whole life, I think they were always there. I think that's what I just didn't know why I would leave something, or when something felt uncomfortable. Like when we talked about my family, I ran away from home as a little girl. Something wasn't right. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
repeated this over and over because somewhere in me was the strength to have boundaries. I didn't allow the
Mm,
world to take that away from me. It just got stronger.
right. Right. Strength to have boundaries, strength to make changes. And again, when you come from an experience of trauma, particularly childhood trauma, um, these are not easy changes to make, but they're super important. We've talked before, Ash, about trauma bonding, right?
Yeah.
In relationships, trauma bonding that happens in toxic relationships. And just for people listening, what trauma bonding is, it's really a strong emotional attachment that develops between a victim and their abuser, right? And of course, it's hugely toxic, very damaging. It involves a lot of abuse and pain, and that's what, in the worst of these relationships, that really plays itself out. And when you look at trauma bonding, there's so many similarities, um, like that isolation and that depending on somebody else, on your abuser, even for love and validation, and that scared and confused state and this skewed sense of loyalty to the abuser. That those are things that narcissistic people, they just are masters at developing in relationship with the people when they take control and when they really feel like they have their hooks in you. So none of this is easy to escape from. All of it, though, is doable. And I really want to, even though, I want to validate that it's not easy, but I also want to validate that it's totally available to everybody. Everybody can do healing. Everybody can make changes in their life. It wasn't easy for you, Ash. It wasn't easy for me, but thank goodness we made that choice to move through that and to do that. Now, Ash, one of the things that I haven't mentioned about you is that you're a great writer. Oh my gosh. I love the things that you write. There's lots of things that you post on social media. We're going to take one last commercial break. And when we come back, I am going to share with the world one of my favorite things that you wrote in a social media post, and just have you expand upon it. And again, you have such beautiful expression through writing that I'd love to share that. So we'll do that when we come back. We're going to take a brief break. You're watching Talks with Tracy on Bold Brave Television Network. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. author, radio show host, and coach, John M. Hawkins, reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy. I'm here with the beautiful Ash Benevides, and I just mentioned before the break, Ash, that you are actually a very gifted and talented writer. Oh my gosh. I love some of the posts that you make, and I know that you're writing a book about your life. For one, can't wait to read this book. Because I know, you said you like to use humor, and I just love the way you talk about life experiences, and there's real genuineness to it, and you have a way of talking about really super difficult things in a humorous way as well, because I'm a strong believer that it's good to laugh about it. It's good to produce those kind of chemicals in your brain when you're in the midst of your most difficult things. So laughter is the best medicine, and I can't wait to read your book. If it's okay with you, I am going to share something that a post that you made, and I think I'll read it because I do know that you are joining us today on your phone. So I think it would be a little hard for you to do both things. Are you okay with
Yeah.
me reading
Yeah,
this post?
absolutely.
Okay, so this is from a post. I'm not sure. I don't remember if it was Facebook or Instagram. I know you do posts on both. So this is writing from you. One of the biggest mistakes people make getting into a relationship with narcissistic or emotionally abusive partners or toxic friendships is mistaking politeness for integrity. Politeness is saying all the right things to you, opening your door, taking you out to dinner, having good manners, almost too good to be true. Right out the gate, expressing interest. Anyone can be polite. Serial killers can be polite. Politeness is something you see right away. It's a social skill, while integrity is revealed over time. Integrity is consistent. It's not something that's reserved for some people and not others. It's based on a person's unwavering commitment to their values, and it's motivated by a strong moral compass. How to do what is right, regardless of external factors. Politeness is focused on how we present ourselves to others. Integrity is an internal quality related to personal values, honesty, and ethics. It's what we do when no one else is looking. I love that line. It reflects a deeper commitment to being genuine and true to oneself. One way to notice this is to evaluate integrity across the board in someone's life. How do people treat others? How do they treat their ex-partners? Do they justify sketchy because of how they were wronged? Integrity is consistent. And then maybe you could talk about that. You're drawing a line between politeness and integrity. I love where you say polite. Even serial killers can be polite, right?
Yeah, I think that it sort of kind of goes hand in hand with like that love bombing aspect with a person when they just sort of admire you right out the chute. And even in my
Mm-hmm.
own life, I'd always laugh and be like, this person doesn't know me, like what? And integrity, what I love about integrity and moral compass is like really standing out. And what do you do when no one's looking, right? Like, how are you to
Mm-hmm.
people? How are you to your animals? Because
Mm-hmm.
the truth comes out. Like, it's kind of like the saying when like a narcissist mask slips off and their true colors come out. Well, a person of integrity will always look at the bigger picture. You know, they don't they don't just show it to one person and the next. I think it says it all really in the writing, you know, and when you look for it in person, you do look for consistencies. I know in my life, meeting new people, um, partner potentials, I have a partner now. Is their relation behavior consistent? Is it steady? Are they steady Eddie? You know, and do they evaluate themselves even? You know, that's something I look at.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see one of the things I look at too, I remember hearing it somewhere, is like when you meet people, whether it's a friend or a lover, how do they talk about their past relationships or people in their life? Do they blame a lot?
Mm-hmm.
You know, do they are they nice to certain people and not nice to other people? Because integrity stems across everything. You know, I had an experience once at a ranch, and I ended up leaving that ranch too, but nobody took care of the trash on this ranch, and it was pretty bad, and cows were sick and dying, and there was a lot going
Oh.
on. So, you know, instead of like trying to be cool and rope, I chose to go clean up sheet metal and pollution and take care of the animals' water supply, the carcasses and whatnot, right? And that's an example of integrity. No one else wanted to do
Yes,
it, but I
right.
chose to do it because it was the right thing to do.
And you
We
would
all
have
know
done
what right
it
and wrong
if
is.
you would have done it if people noticed you or if people didn't notice you doing it.
Yeah.
So I want to read one more thing. I'd like to end our show today with one more brief little piece that you wrote, which I love. You know, Ash and I, we often joke about like making T-shirts with different sayings. So I'd like to end with one of these sayings that we should put on a T-shirt. All right, so Ash writes, it takes a very strong individual to sit with themselves, calm their storms, and heal all of their issues without bringing anyone else into their chaos. Be legit, own your shit, and never quit. Words to live by. I love that. Thank you for letting me share some of the things that you share on social media. Can you tell people real quick before we're done here how they can follow you if they'd like to see more?
Yeah, I mean, on Facebook, it's just Ashlyn, Aisling, Benevides, Benavides. It's a long one. And then on Instagram, where I do a lot of my writing, is Wild Spirit, but the I in wild is the number one. And welcome
Mhm.
to write, answer anything if I can help.
Nice, beautiful. So you have agreed to help me. Next week, you're going to come back on. And next week, Ash, we're going to talk about, you mentioned a head injury, or not head injury, you mentioned a car accident that led to your awakening and your changes in your life. Next week, we're going to get into that moment for you. And we're going to talk about how a lifetime of trauma kind of collided and has intermingled with an injury that is a traumatic brain injury. And we're going to talk about your experience with traumatic brain injury, the pros and cons, so to speak. So that'll be next week. Please join me for that. I appreciate everybody who listens to this podcast. If you'd like to get a hold of me to comment on the show or to receive services, please hit me up. My email is tcholistichealing@yahoo.com. Until then, we will see you next week with Ash. You've been watching Talks with Tracy on Bold Brave Television. We will be back next week. Thanks a lot.
This has been Talks with Tracy. Join us each week as Tracy and her guests will come together and realize that underneath it all, we are all the same and never alone. So join us each week and let Talks with Tracy be your safe place to land in your healing journey. Right here, Thursdays, 11 a.m.